Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting. This is a regular meeting. It is Tuesday, March 21st, 2023. It is 9:07 a.m. The session is set to go until noon today. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. Carolina Mejia, I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menzer. To my left, Commissioner Gary Edwards is excused for today. I apologize about that, just force the habit. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as staff joining us in the boardroom as well as via Zoom. And there are some changes to the agenda today, so we'll go ahead and before we start on homeless strategies, we'll go through those changes.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner. Consider Commissioner Edwards is not able to join us, not just this morning, but including this afternoon. My recommendation is for item number 4 under the Commissioner items, which is the executive session related to recording public meetings, to be delayed until a later date. I believe that is important for all 3 board members to be part of that conversation. Thank you.
So item number 4 on the agenda is stricken. Is there any items on the agenda today that Commissioner Edwards?
I'll go through on the actual agenda, and I have a couple for consideration. Yeah, just to delay for next week for today's agenda.
Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and start with homeless strategies. And Keely?
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. Today, I have an update for you on, very brief. The 2 advisory boards for the Regional Housing Council, the Affordable Housing Advisory Board and the Homeless Services Advisory Board, have both had their inaugural meetings. Both went very well, and we're excited to see how those groups develop. And we're getting them prepped for reviewing for our biennial request for proposals process or grant process. Other than that, we do have the first draft of preliminary numbers for the point in time count for 2023. And after we meet internally in our office today, I'd be glad to bring those to you during my update next week, if that is what you would prefer, or the method in which you prefer to get those that information. And other than that, that's my update.
Thank you. Any questions, Commissioner Menzer?
I might have asked you about this, but if I did, I forgot your response. I'm going to ask again. The tents that are on the backside of the fence of Hobby Lobby parking lot, I'm just wondering how that fits into the whole right of way, because like I thought the point of that was they're visible, super visible and super dangerous, and these seem like the most visible and most dangerous I've seen out of any right of way encampment. I mean, it looks like the tents are gonna fall into the freeway basically. And I'm just wondering how that's being handled.
Yeah, so it is part of the right of way, and Department of Transportation and City of Olympia have ongoing cleanups. In fact, I think they're out there today and they're meeting on that side. So I know that they are monitoring it, if not on a daily, then in a every other daily basis, to work with folks to make it as, do what they can until Maple Court, the hotel, is ready for occupancy.
Remind me when Maple Court is ready.
This morning, we heard from Lehigh on a weekly meeting that they're projecting 10 to 12 weeks out.
But and the folks that are there in that spot that I mentioned, will they be able to access Maple Court? Because I thought at a certain point they identified people and they had a list, and and I mean that seemed like that piece has sprung up since we've initiated this plan. So are they going to still be part of the plan?
Sure. Yes, the by name list is not complete, and it will remain open until there's some meaningful housing opportunities for folks. So the by name list right now is kind of live until Maple Court and or Franz Anderson is ready for operation.
Okay. Thank you.
Keely, as a follow-up to that, how many individuals are currently on that list? Like, what's the number?
I can get that number for you. I don't have that number offhand. I know that their Only Map is expanding their outreach efforts for the right of way, and they are creating a by name list of all the right of way camps. So that if someone were to be ready for Unity Commons when a bed opens, they'd be able to go ahead and move them in if they choose. So I can get that number for you though.
I was just curious more than anything. I know that a lot of those camps have grown, as there's been cleanups in other places. So just wondering kind of what the current number is and maybe compare.
If I were to hazard a guess, in that whole section right there, probably 75 people. There's probably 50 on Wheeler. There's under 20 at Nickerson, and in the jungle, probably another 70 or more.
Thank you, Keely.
Mhm.
Any further questions, Commissioner Munster?
No.
No, nothing else from me. Okay, thank you, Keely.
Mhm.
Okay, next is the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for a meeting of March 21st, 2023. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Munster. Edward's here, so I'm kind of looking just to
Yes.
confirmation of change.
I'm tracking. Yeah, we'll make the change.
I'm ready to go.
Next is the approval of the Tuesday, March 21st, 2023 agenda. There will be an opportunity for the public to address the board and county managers updates.
I don't have any specific follow-up updates this afternoon, Madam Chair. But you will I think you receive a heads up from Mr. Pettit. He will be providing public testimony this afternoon.
Thank you. We have consent items A through E. Item 3A, 3B, 3C are appointments to our advisory committees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following the direction of the board, item 3A is for you to consider reappointing Ms. Pat Levine to the Agriculture Advisory Committee for a 2-year term, which will expire on March 21st, 2025. Item 3B is also to consider a reappointment of Mr. Rob Kirkwood to the Historic Commission for a 4-year term with a term expiration on March 21st, 2027. And item 3C is for you to consider appointment of Ms. Pamela Johnson to the Hotel Motel Commission for a 3-year term with an expiration date on March 21st, 2026.
Is there any questions on those appointments? Commissioner Munster?
No.
Okay. Item 3D from Community Planning and Economic Development is Thurston County Hearing Examiner Contract Amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You reviewed this item last week. And the county contracts with Ms. Sharon Rice of Sharon Rice Hearing Examiners PLLC to provide hearing examiners administrative hearing duties related to public health social services as well as other items related to the hearing examiner's duties. The current contract that we had with Sharon Rice Hearing Examiner PLLC goes from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2025. The approved contract includes some clauses to address rate increases to the subcontractors. And in January 2023, we started having those conversations to address that clause in the contract. So for your proposal today is to consider an amendment to the contract to increase the rates. And that goes to the legal research and decision preparation. The new rate will be $110 per hour. For Ms. Lauren Spaeth as a paralegal, the new rate will be $44. And for Michael Wilsley as the editor writing paraprofessional is $44 an hour. The actual hearing examiner's rate does not change and remains at $175 per hour. And Jeremy's here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Jeremy, anything you would like to add?
Madam Chair, no, I don't have anything to add to the county manager's summary. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mensah, any questions? No questions for me. Perfect. Next, moving on to Human Resources is Washington County's Risk Pool appointment of Representative Brian Bishop.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, the county is part of the risk pool. And the risk pool is a consolidation of several counties across the state, which we pool our resources to have coverage, insurance, and liability insurance across the county. The risk pool is a good strategy for the county. Is the economy of scale. When many counties provide that, it seems to be the rates could be beneficial. Although in the last year we received a significant increase on the rates, the risk pool, that is something that we need to continue to address as we move forward in 2023. But as members of the risk pool, the board needs to take a formal action to determine who will be representing the risk pool. So this particular action is for you to consider appointing Commissioner Gary Edwards as the primary representative, they call director. Also, we have Tammy Devlin as an alternate director. We have John Thunheim as an alternate director, Brian Bishop, alternate director, and Brian Anderson also as an alternate director and safety officer. Is a resolution attached for your consideration. And again, this is just in a way of formality for you to appoint those individuals to the risk pool. Tammy?
You said it well. Nothing to add.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi there.
If Commissioner Edwards is the only director, why do we need so many alternate directors?
And that was, I believe, a question last week. Tammy, can you elaborate as to what we need a little more depth into this, the assistant directors?
Yes, this gives us more flexibility. The risk pool is run by the membership, and so they have various committees. They have like an underwriting committee that looks at different coverages for the pool. They have a finance committee that looks at the values and what reserves they need to set. They have a risk management committee, and so that gives us an ability to work on those different committees for the pool. Since it's basically like running an insurance pool. And so we actually get in there and make the rules, set what's insured, what's not insured. And so there's quite a bit of work that goes behind the scenes before actual action gets put forth to the board for pool coverage and whatnot.
I mean, it's obvious, but I guess I'll just ask, the alternate directors then can serve, even though Commissioner Edwards might be available, the alternate directors can serve on the subcommittees? And
Yes, that's correct.
But they have to be alternate.
And each county has one vote. So if Gary can't attend one of the meetings, one of us step in, maybe John Thunheim steps in or myself. If I can't attend, that I'll rely on the risk staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to department items. Items 4A, approval of the vouchers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recommend this item to be moved to next week's agenda. This voucher list for the week of February 7, 2023 has a combined amount of $4,144,396.04. And the reason that I recommend move it to next week is for Commissioner Edwards, he would like to exercise his vote related to this matter, but it is up to you if you want to continue on and approving this voucher without him voting on it.
Commissioner Mensah.
I mean, based on his recent comments on these items, I think he'd be happy to have us just get it done.
I will tend to agree. I just want to be respectful.
In any other context, I would absolutely honor that, but it's really up to you, County Manager, but I'm okay either way. We could put it on the consent agenda today or just move it. If there's no pressing need, we can just move it.
If you like to move, I will recommend to leave it as a department item. So we'll just keep it.
I don't have a feeling either way or another, just based on his previous comments. If there was something completely different, then I would.
So we'll keep it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's.
Central Services, item 5A, or no. Central Services, item 5A, contract award for Public Health and Social Services Water Lab Relocation Project, number 25630.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You review this item. This is the last step in the process, moving some of the last function that is currently located on Building 1 of the courthouse campus. As you may know, the last functions remaining was the water lab for public health and social services. We have embarked on a project that we're going to be moving those functions to the Lily Road campus. So we have gone through this process. We issued the call for bids, and on March 6, 2023, we received 7 responsive bids. And the result of that was for you to consider awarding the contract to Christensen Incorporated as the general contractor for the amount of $649,000 and authorize Robin to sign the contract. Tony is the project manager related to this project, and he's available here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Oh, anything you would like to add, Tony?
Did we already pay for part of this project? Cause I remember it being told it was gonna cost $1 million to do this, or is this just coming in under bid?
Actually, it's under bid. I think the initial estimate was good. When we received the bids, was pleasantly surprised at the low bid, so I think we are in a good shape. Will you agree, Tony?
I would agree with that. The winning bid actually came in about 150,000 under the design engineer. Very happy with that.
Just out of curiosity, what is it possible to tell us, like, what's the most expensive part of this project that kind of drives the cost in terms of what's involved?
Yeah, so the existing lab, as county manager explained, is very old. It's, and so what this project afforded is the opportunity to come in for a complete redesign to bring a lab up to standards, meet the needs of the staff, which are very packed. The demand for the water lab has increased exponentially over the years, and so this new lab will provide them plenty of space for growth, provides them a lot of storage, which they don't have currently, and also provides their equipment needs that they've requested to be upgraded as well. And so initially when Chris Helmer took over started this project, I took over from him, we didn't know what the cost was gonna be. I mean, it could have been as high as 2 to 3 million was kind of the projections initially. And so through working with staff and the AE, we were able to narrow the scope down, refine it to their exact needs to be adequate and provide growth. And through that, I've been very pleased with the total cost, which right now should be under 1.2 million or right in that range. That's with design, equipment, all of the soft costs involved with that total.
And remind me, county manager, where is this funded out of?
Actually, it's going to be funded by environmental health funding. And we have capacity in that fund. Yes.
This is the one where we've had a lot of questions in regards if it could be mixed with the public works one, correct?
Yeah, thank you.
They wanted a
I think
water
you
lab
recall
as
the
well.
conversation very well because the function of this water lab is very limited in scope. It's really is what was water testing, potable water, Class A, Class B. It does not do anything beyond any other testing that might be required in terms of the solid waste facilities that we have. That's no part of that. And the board authorized another item for Public Works to go ahead and secure the services of lab services to do what they need to do on all the sewer utilities, sewer facilities that we have.
Thank you. Okay, no further questions. Thank you so much, Tony. Moving on to item 6A, 2023 lodging tax award recommendations. This is one of the ones I would recommend to move to next week.
Yeah, that was my suggestion will be, although the Commissioner Edwards sits on the lodging tax advisory committee. But I think it will be a good idea unless you see Jenica Machado is here in the room and she's helping us managing this grant process. Do you see an issue to delaying this item until next week? Can you come introduce yourself?
Jenica Machado, Economic Development Manager. Pushing another week likely won't be a problem. I can take a look at some of the anticipated dates, but I don't think we would have been able to do anything actionable in that week anyway, so.
Okay, let's go ahead and have discussion on this item, but yeah, that's going to be my recommendation. Do you have any heartburn with pushing this matter on to next week or concerns?
Not if there's no consequences that we have to be aware of. I don't have any problem. I guess for a discussion point, I know we had about double the amount of applicants, and can you remind me of what criteria would be applied by the committee to decide to fund one thing versus another? Is it purely a projection of how much tourism they think that this will result in hotel stays? I mean, exactly what is the principle that's being applied to get the decisions for funding or not?
So there were eligibility criteria, but they're in terms of how they did the allocation. There were two different schools of thought that came up during the discussion. One was, let's support the events that will bring the most people in for tourism and get the most heads in beds. And then there was another, not necessarily contradictory, but another school of thought of some of these events don't have large other funding sources, and so let's make sure that we support some of these smaller events. And so I'd say both of those approaches were kind of balanced through this. And so you can see that there are some organizations that are really well known and have a lot of fundraising activities outside of LTAC, and they were still provided funding, and then that was balanced with some of the smaller groups there.
And then the only organization that didn't get funded, it was specifically because it did not qualify because of staffing, is that correct?
There were concerns that this didn't quite meet the intent of the funds. It was seeking funds to pay for a part-time docent to a museum, and the group had kind of unanimously decided that that wasn't a good fit for the funds.
Oh, so a lot of these were just given at like 50% of the request?
So, some of them are full, like the Washington State Senior Games, but then a lot of them were done at lower amounts than their full request. I believe the other one, the Olympia Flight Museum, was also allocated the full amount that they requested.
Is there like a limit on how much you can give to one applicant?
No, not I'm aware of. Like, one applicant could have applied for $100,000. And so
It's up to the committee.
Yeah, it's up to the committee to decide how to allocate that within the max amount of 100,000 that we had available.
One of the questions that was asked last week was, some of these organizations, like, did they apply to other LTACs and are they receiving funding from that? And curious to know if you were able to look into that.
I know that some did apply for others, like the city of Olympia, and I believe were awarded funds. I don't have a breakdown of each one, but I know that that is an element for some of these applications.
This is where I can always get confused. This committee is looking at revenue from unincorporated county lodging taxes. But it can fund things that happen in the municipalities. But City of Olympia, they are looking at hotel taxes in the city. And are they allowed to fund things in Thurston County that outside the municipal boundary or not?
I'm not sure about the city's LTAC program. I can look into that.
I mean, they probably wouldn't, but I'm just curious if like, you know, I mean, there could be something in theory. There could be something like right outside the city that's in the county that, you know, brings people to the region. Just trying to get a sense of it, because I've never sat on this committee, so I don't know kind of what the, you know, what the focus is, or, you know, like do we give priority to things outside the city because the tax is coming from there, or does that even really matter? Is it really a regional, you know, approach to trying to bring in the most tourists no matter where that event happens, and that's gonna spill over to everybody's benefit? I mean, I just never sat on this committee to kind of know how they think about that.
Well, and that was part of the discussion, you know, with the two schools of thought that I had mentioned, with the focus on some that are smaller, that are in the county, was balanced with the discussion of, well, you know, some of these organizations and events have much bigger numbers, and they saw value in allocating funds there as well. And so, yeah, that topic was discussed.
Maybe to the benefit of the public, can you just run through the organizations, they maybe receive money, the request, and how much is the recommendation, just quickly?
So the first applicant, Hands On Children's Museum, requested 17,500, and the LTAC recommendation was 10,000. Next, Yelm Chamber of Commerce requested 10,000, and LTAC recommendation at 5,000. Team Tomorrow requested 25,000.
I'm sorry, if you're gonna do that, can you just hit the project too?
Okay.
So people know
The
what.
description of the project?
Yeah, well, just, it's very short, but it helps people know, like, why would we give money to the Yelm Chamber of Commerce? Well, it's for the Nisqually Valley Barbecue. And nobody knows who Team Tomorrow is. That's for the South Sound Block Party. So,
So Hands On Children's Museum was for out-of-town marketing. Yelm Chamber of Commerce was the Nisqually Valley Barbecue. Team Tomorrow was the South Sound Block Party. The next, Olympia Downtown Alliance for the Summerfest requested 30,000, recommended at funding at 10,000. The Olympia Flight Museum for the Olympic Air Show requested 7,500. LTAC recommendation came in at 7,500. The Rochester Citizens Group has the project of the Swede Day Midsummer Festival, requested 7,000. LTAC recommendation at 3,500. The Thurston County Fairgrounds and Event Center for the Fairgrounds and Event Center requested 30,000, and the LTAC recommendation came in at 25,000. Washington Center for the Performing Arts had a project of their year-round facility to support marketing expenses outside of our region. The total request was 15,000. The recommendation was 3,000. Tenino Young at Heart. The project was Junchback of Notre Dame. I thought it was a typo, but it was in multiple places in the application, so I'm assuming that's the name. Was requested at 5,000. The LTAC recommendation was 1,000. Washington State University Extension for the Southwest Washington Grazing School had a request of 1,867 and 1,867, and the LTAC recommendation came in at 1,500. The Tenino Area Chamber of Commerce for the marketing of Tenino events and attractions and the Oregon Trail Days was requested at 6,000 and recommended at 3,000. City of Tenino for Music in the Park was requested at 10,000 and recommended at 3,000. The South Thurston County Historical Society for the Tenino Depot Museum is the project we had discussed that the LTAC recommended not funding. South Sound Maritime Heritage Association for the Olympia Harbor Days Festival requested 20,000 and was recommended at 10,000. The Washington State Senior Games for the Washington State Senior Games was requested at 7,500 and recommended at 7,500, and so that came to a total grant requested of over 200,000 with recommended funding at 100,000.
I have an answer for your question. The LTAC funds and cities can fund events outside of their municipal boundaries. And in fact, I believe this year the city of Lacey funded $30,000 to the Washington Center event, which is in Olympia. So they do have the flexibility.
Okay.
Any questions, comments? So then we will be making a final decision on this next week, and this is moved from our calendar today, our agenda. Okay, thank you so much, Jenica. Okay, moving on to community planning and economic development, item 7A. Final action for development code docket item A-18, agricultural activities, critical areas update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up to the long conversation, including the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission reviewed this item in the two work sessions back in July 2022, July 20, 2022, and October 5th, 2022. The Planning Commission held a public hearing November 2nd, 2022, which they accepted public testimony. Following the public hearing, the Planning Commission voted 9-0 to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners as presented. The Board of County Commissioners was briefed on January 11th, 2023. And then at that point, the Board of County Commission directed staff to bring an AIS to request a public hearing. The public hearing was held on February 28, 2023 at 3:30 in the afternoon. We received public testimony on that matter. The follow-up, following the public hearing, you provide direction to bring this item for a final consideration, and that is the item that is scheduled before you this afternoon. And Ashley is here to add additional perspective. Questions?
I don't have any questions for Ashley, so this she needs to.
Ashley, anything you'd like to add?
Nope, that was a great summary. Thank you.
Great. No questions? No questions for me. Moving on to item 7B, Thurston County Permitting Fee Study Competitive Bidding.
We also reviewed this item, and this has been a long process. Let me take you back to September 2016, 2022. The board authorized to go ahead and have a request for proposals to secure the services for a consultant to help us on the assessment of all the fees related to the land use permits, planning, septic, drinking water, surface and subsurface water protection. So the process of the request for proposals returned in no responding consultants. So we continue to look for ways as to how we can probably have a consultant to do this work. So we approached the current the vendor and the consultant who provided the last fee study for the county, and that is FCS Group. We reach out to them, and they do have the capacity to provide the services. And that is the proposal before you, is to consider waiving the competitive bidding requirements. That is in accordance with the procurement policy. The internal auditor has concurred on this particular action for the county to issue the contract to FCS Group for an amount for up to $196,495. And this is the up to because a fee for service, depending on the number of hours they will be using to deliver this program. This funding is composed of the community plan and economic development coming from public health and social services, as well as public works. And again, this is already part of the approved budget in 2023. And Jeremy Davis is here to answer the questions.
Jeremy, anything you would like to add?
Madam Chair, I don't have anything to add to the county manager's summary, and of course, I'll provide a full summary this afternoon, including a general timeline of events for the fee study for the board and the public.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Munson?
You mentioned that the internal auditor said it's okay. Do you, either of you happen to know what the, because I'm always curious about the law and trying to get it drilled in my own head, like what are the criteria by which you can do, you can waive competitive bidding, and I think there's a list of things. Do you happen to know what legal provision is satisfied here that allows us to waive competitive bidding? Is it the fact that nobody bid, or we've used them before, or whatever that criteria is?
So professional services could be excluded, and that's what it is.
Always can be excluded?
It could be. I mean, we usually don't, but you have the latitude for professional services to be excluded bidding requirements. Professional services.
Jeremy, did you have anything on that?
Only that we did, of course, go out for RFP on this one. So we followed the competitive bidding process outlined in the county's purchasing procedures prior to coming to you with a request for the waiver, just to make sure we dotted our I's and crossed our T's on it. But yes, the county manager, I agree with him on that one. So yes.
What we couldn't do, for instance, like a public works contracts, that cannot be waived, for instance. But professional services, you have the latitude, you have exercise in more than one occasion, that action. So similar to when you allocated contracts to legal services. And that is a professional services, you have the option to waive the competitive requirements.
Without any special additional
No.
reason?
And what we do is we cross all the T's and dot all the I's with the internal auditor before we bring an item for your consideration, just to make sure.
So Jeremy, can you walk me through the timeline on this, right? We put out an RFP.
Mhm.
There were no responses because of, I guess when it was done, everyone was busy. So we got no responses. So after that, we approached this firm who we've worked with before and asked them if they could do it. Why didn't they just respond to the RFP?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, we did issue an RFP in September. We actually extended that from the end of October to mid-November and contacted all of the consultants on the MRSE vendor list to perform these sorts of, or we thought may perform these sorts of analysis for jurisdictions. So we cast a really wide net to try and capture any interested consultant. With FCS Group, they cited staffing changes and staffing shortages at the time the RFP was issued. Two other consultants that I contacted during the RFP process, both of them no longer do this line of business due to staffing changes. So we did actually try to contact others to see if they would be interested in contracting with us on this. So we tried to do our due diligence as best we could to find an applicable contractor for the county at the best rates possible.
So then you reached out to this firm and whenever before they said we can't do it because of staffing shortages, now everything's good and they can do it?
We were able to come to some agreement on a general timeline shift from what we had originally asked for, because we were hoping to get the fee study completed prior to December of this year. And they were able to hire additional staff that could do the work for them and for us. So yes, ma'am, they did not have the staff in the fall to complete the RFP itself. Later on, they did hire new staff to cover those bases for FCS Group. And then, of course, also for their clients.
I'm gonna ask that this be moved for next week. Because I'm not there.
Any additional questions that you'd like to, for staff to answer for next week?
No, I'll probably talk with Jeremy offline. I just. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. I look forward to speaking to you this week. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Public Health and Social Services, item 8A, amendment number 12 to the Washington State Department of Health 2022 through 2024. Consolidated contract number CLH 31030.
As a little bit of a background, Madam Chair, the board authorized the overall umbrella contract, or the CONCON as we call it, the consolidated contract with the State Department of Health back in January 11th, 2022. And in the last few months since, there have been many amendments. They have increased the funding that we receive from the state, including the Foundation of Public Health, to conduct and provide services to our residents here in Thurston County. So this particular amendment number 12, they will add $139,250. So the new contract has a total combined amount of $12,548,833. And that goes, the performance of this contract goes from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024. Some of the areas in which this additional money will cover will continue to fund the COVID vaccination requirements, the COVID response, injury and violence prevention, overdose data in action. Provides support to the drinking water group A programs, and as well as continue to support the immunization of COVID-19 vaccines. David Bain, the Director of Public Health Social Services, is here to answer any questions.
Thank you. David, anything you'd like to add?
No, County Manager said it well. This is pretty routine for us in terms of how we get our funding from DOH.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Menser? No? Okay, no questions for me. Moving on, item 8B, Department of Ecology, Water Quality Combined Financial Assistance Agreement for Black Lake Pollution Identification and Correction Project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This also reviewed this item last week, and the county has been awarded $250,000 a grant for the Department of Ecology to conduct the Black Lake pollution identification, also the PIC program and correction project. This project has a total cost of $418,792 with the grant. The remainder will be covered with local match. That includes Foundation of Public Health as part of the match. So last week, and this is, as you may remember, it was a continuation of some of the public testimony you received from members of the Black Lake. And the board has taken the steps to continue that conversation, to explore some of the options, whether the septics has a direct contribution to the pollutants in Black Lake. Last week, I believe Commissioner Edwards had a conversation related to this particular grant and why we don't access the same type of grants for the other lakes here in the county, such as the lake management districts. It's a little bit different, at least from my perspective, and Art can correct me if I'm off on this description. But this is really specifically related to the PIC program, which is related to the septic discharge into any water body and not necessarily related to the functions of the lake management district. If there's any issues related to septic system in any other lakes, certainly we can explore that and reach out to get additional funding if that is a possibility. Art?
Good morning, yeah, and again, I'm Art Starry, the Environmental Health Division Director for Thurston County Public Health, and as the county manager indicated, this project came about because of the work that was done by the Black Lake Special District a few years ago. They hired a contractor to do a pollution assessment for the lake. They identified 3 tributaries to the lake where they found elevated levels of fecal coliform bacteria. They did some special indicator work that found that these could be coming from septic systems, or at least from some human source. And so with that information and then the interest of the board, we then were able to apply for a grant from the Department of Ecology to allow us to further investigate those discharges. And actually, this will expand quite a bit on the area that was identified in the study that was done by the Black Lake folks to identify pollution sources. So we'll be both looking for fecal coliform pollution, or things that could be coming from wastewater, as well as other phosphorus and other nutrients. And we are proposing to look at some special indicators that will help us more clearly define the source of the bacteria if we find them. So it's a pretty extensive study. And as the county manager indicated, we're augmenting the funds that we're receiving from ecology with foundational public health services money, because we want to do a really good job out there. The nature of the grant that we have from ecology, both the total scope of the total amount available, and there are some limitations on it. By using the FPHS money, we're able to do a little bit broader level of work. So it's, I think, a really great project. Our staff are ready to start on this as soon as it's authorized. So we look forward to this opportunity to work with the folks out at Black Lake.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Munson?
So if the grant is $250 and we're augmenting it with our own foundational public health, why is this total project cost in this legislative action rather than just accepting the grant from ecology?
Because that's the total effort and on the program itself.
But the agreement that we're approving,
It's $250.
so why wouldn't,
So the
it seems like that's not right for the.
okay, I see what you're saying. Maybe
So-
go ahead, Art, I'm sorry.
I was going to say that so Stuart Whitford is the project manager for this, and he developed kind of the total program for the Black Lake folks. And so he did, again, what the budget shown there, the $418,000 is the total amount of work. But as Commissioner Menser indicated, that the grant itself is $333,000. That's the $250,000 that ecology is providing plus our 25% match. But the reason that and then this is pretty typical of the way that ecology does stuff. If you come up with a project that's bigger than the total grant, then they include that as the total budget. That's just kind of the way they've done it. I understand that it's kind of confusing, and sometimes I try to argue with them about this, but I've not been real successful.
Well, can we just put in both numbers? Can we just say, with Department of Ecology for $250,000 and a total project cost of,
Yeah, we can certainly.
just to
clarify.
show what the actual
The actual grant
grant
is.
is being received from ecology?
Yeah, we're working on a description of that.
Yeah, so I can work on the motion. Sure.
You just add that in and not really tweak anything else there.
Okay. And I can certainly explain that when I provide discuss the agenda item later today.
I think it's worth the public understanding that we're committing additional local funds to this. I mean, obviously, the foundational public health comes from the state, but ultimately it's the Board of County Commissioners that can allocate that to, a variety of different projects or activities, and we're putting it to this activity. on top
I'd be
of.
happy to do that.
No other questions. I remember this one pretty well.
No questions for me, thank you. Moving on to Public Works, item 9A, Public Works Sport Construction Loan for Country Club Road Northwest at Green Cove Creek Culvert Replacement, CP number 63023.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board reviewed this item last week. And this is, as you stated, Madam Chair, is related to the Country Club Road at the Green Cove culvert replacement. And one of the key financial strategies for this almost $9 million project construction includes several alternatives such as the county road fund, the real estate excise tax to the use set some money aside, $150,000 from stormwater utility funding. It also included getting a loan from the Public Works Trust Fund for $4.5 million. This loan has been somewhat approved, and in fact, this project competed very well across the state in qualifying for the Public Works Trust Fund loan. This has a low rate loan of 1.39%. And if we utilize the entire loan of $4.5 million, there will be just about $260,000 annual payment that will be paid by the road fund for the next few years. Also, the conversation evolved whether we, by accepting this loan, we will be committed to use the $4.5 million in its entirety. That's not the case. We'll continue, and the department will continue to look for different funding sources. Some of the strategies you may discuss, if there's any pressure on expanding the ARPA funds, this could be a project you may consider. But what we're doing right now is having a solid financial plan that we can go ahead and deliver this project beginning next year in terms of construction. So that's really what it is at this point for us to accept this loan. Whether it's the $4.5 million is yet to be decided, depending on how successful we can secure other funding sources on this process. Karen Weiss is here to answer any questions.
Karen, anything you'd like to add?
I just add, I know there were some questions last week about the grants and we were pursuing. I would just share that we have at this point applied for 5 different grants. On 2 of them, we've heard back that we were unsuccessful, but there are still 3 out there that we are, pending information on. So I just wanted to just share that with the board, emphasizing that we are looking again for additional funding sources that would allow us to supplement this project as well. And I guess the other thing to add is that the Finance Committee did meet on this last week and are making a recommendation for the board to approve this loan.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Munzer?
No questions.
No questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 9B, Long Lake Algae Control Contract Award 2023 through 2026.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a continuation of implementing the work plan with the Long Lake. And this is a proposal for you. Where February 6, 2023, we only received 1 proposal. And from a company that provides specializing in aquatic algae management to conduct as needed the 2-step phosphorus management applications along the Long Lake. And this particular contract for your consideration is for a period of 4 years. It has a total amount not to exceed $850,000. This item has been coordinated with the Long Lake Lake Management District leadership, and also they're providing their support for you to award this contract, which is to Aqua Technex LLC. To provide those services for the next 4 years. Tim Wilson is here to add additional perspective.
Tim, anything you'd like to add?
Good morning, Commissioners. Nothing to add at this time, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, Commissioner Munzer? No questions for me. After that, we will review our standing items, and we have a public hearing starting at 3:30 today And it's a public hearing for Housing and Urban Development Home Art and Development Program, year 2021 HUD Annual Action Plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your consideration this afternoon. You have two actions. This one to close the public hearing, and depending on the public testimony that you might receive on this item, you have an option to go ahead in the next step, which will be to accept the Home American Rescue Plan allocation plan. But if the board receives significant public testimony that requires the staff to follow up with answering some questions, we certainly can schedule a follow-up briefing before the board can consider taking the action.
Thank you. Tom, anything you would like to add?
No, thank you. Tom Webster, Public Health and Social Services. I'll give a brief presentation on the plan this afternoon at the public hearing, but happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Just looking at I'm not sure I grasped last week that this was not, we usually have our HUD annual reports, but that this is a different one related to ARPA. And I'm not sure I totally grasped that last week. So I'm looking at your last slide on proposed use. 47.5% toward support, 47.5% toward development of affordable rental housing. Is this just folding into our RHC recommendation to those committees, or how are we utilizing these dollars specifically?
So,
it's not very specific.
Yeah, so at this point, before we can award those funds, we need HUD to approve this allocation plan. We don't expect that to happen until later this summer. So we'll need to issue a separate request for proposals to allocate these funds. But we anticipate that they will support and supplement many of the projects the RHC will be funding with their current request for proposal with the funds that are currently available. So we do see this as helping to fill some of the funding gap that we're experiencing this year due to reduced document recording fees and other revenue shortfalls.
And this is obviously just a presentation, not the actual report. Is the information that HUD gets more specific than this, or are they satisfied, do you think, to get this to say, oh, we're going to spend half on support and half on housing?
Yeah, and so there's a process that we went through to get to that. And so in the presentation, HUD really wants us to have a public consultation process that we've done, do an analysis of needs and gaps of needs in our community, which we have done. So the plan really goes into that level of detail. And then we need to make sure that the funds are supporting the eligible populations. And so that's really the meat of the plan is the process of how we arrived at this determination. So our expectation is then that HUD would approve that plan, and then we can identify the specific projects that we intend to fund after issuing a request for proposals.
So there's more information in the report that's going to be satisfactory to them?
Yes, we hope so.
And this public consultation process, what is that all about?
So in developing the plan, we had to reach out to public stakeholders, other providers. So we had held several meetings with the Housing Action Team. We talked to the Housing Authority, TPRC, and several other agencies. We did incorporated feedback from our consolidated plan survey around this. So really getting input from the community on what they see as the highest needs for serving those who are homeless or at risk of homelessness are the priority populations for these funds.
And if the plan is okayed by HUD and the money comes to Thurston County, maybe you already said this, but what will have to happen to be allocated to a specific project? Will it come through the RHC or come directly to the Board of County Commissioners?
Our expectation is that we'll go through the RHC through the advisory boards. So we'll need to issue a request for proposals. But our expectation is that the new advisory boards would review those applications and make a recommendation through the RHC that would be brought forward to you for final approval.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. So after the public hearing, we do have a transportation benefit district, our first of the year. So we'll call the meeting to order at 4 p.m. hopefully. And the approval of the March 21st, 2023 agenda, approval of the meeting minutes from June 21st, 2022. Next is an opportunity for the public to address the board. And we'll move on to two department items. The first one, item 3A, is to ratify the assignment of the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District officers for 2023.
Good morning, Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. This is, I'm anticipating a relatively short meeting. We have some housekeeping items. That first agenda item is a housekeeping item ratifying the President Mejia, Vice President Menzer, and Board Member Edwards. The second agenda item, if there aren't any questions on that, the second agenda item is the annual report that we're required to do. So we held 3 meetings last year, so it will be high level, very brief at this point, just because the TBD is not funded at this time.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Menzer?
No.
How long did that say?
9 minutes.
You already upped it to 4 more minutes, so.
Do you have that in right? 9 minutes.
And this afternoon, Madam, I will be excused from the TBD as well as the director. We need to have an urgent phone call with a representative on a different matter. So Matt Anselman will be representing on the TBD meeting. And I will give you feedback on that meeting later on.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so with that, what time is it? 10:09. Do you want to take a break now or go through the work session?
Let's go through a little bit.
Okay. Next is the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for a meeting of March 28th, 2023. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menzer. Maybe that will switch around to Commissioner Edwards.
Commissioner Edwards on this one.
We'll switch it.
Approval of the Tuesday, March 28th, 2023 agenda, and we have a presentation for Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation.
They will give the opportunity for the board to declare March 2023 as the Child Abuse Prevention here in Thurston County. I believe there is a draft proclamation for your review. I will encourage you to review the proclamation and provide feedback if you have any revisions. Jamie, can you tell us who's going to be attending?
I believe it's the prosecuting attorney's office who's planning on attend to accept.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you, maybe this is a matter of course, but can the prosecuting attorney look at this proclamation and
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
make sure they didn't want to add something local or make sure that everything's up to date?
Yeah.
Okay. Gretchen, since you're here, I'll put you on the spot. Will you be attending for that proclamation?
Yes, I was going to say, so.
Okay.
Commissioners, Gretchen Toller, Public Health Social Services, Maternal Child Health Division Director. And yes, I will be attending, as will Christy Peters and Shelley Willis from Family Education Support Services. We are hoping that Dr. Gilbert will also be able to attend from Providence. And a variety of other members of our partners group who've also been invited. And I actually put the proclamation forward, and I did check everything.
Okay,
Got
great.
new data this year, but if there's anything that needs to be changed, just let me know.
No, that's good. I didn't realize you guys were doing it, so thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move for an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
I will follow up with any items that you might receive public testimony this afternoon, Madam Chair.
We have consent items A through C. First item, 3A, Public Health and Social Services, updated treatment sales tax advisory committee operating policies and procedures.
Thank you, Madam Chair. County Code, Chapter 5.49050 requires the Board of County Commissioners to approve the treatment sales tax committee operating policies and procedures. And the current operating procedures before you were reviewed by the TST committee back in February 2023, and they provided a unanimous recommendation for you to approve those revisions. The revisions at high level includes the addition of the responsibilities and election process of the committee co-chair. Also, addition of the duty of all members to act in accordance with the Thurston County resolutions, proclamations, and other guidance from the board. And also add a specific reference to the Thurston County Resident Advisory Boards and Committees Handbook. This is just a follow-up to some of the interactions that TST had last year. I think this is a good step as to formalize a good environment in which the TST members can have a discussion related to the potential funding allocations. They will eventually bring this to the board for consideration. And Carrie Henning is here to answer any questions.
Carrie, anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you. Good summary.
Okay, questions, Commissioner Mensah?
Can we get a red line version of what's new? If we're not gonna talk about it in this meeting, which
Yeah,
is
we
fine.
could, can you send me a red line version? Can I distribute to or you can distribute to the board? Yeah, certainly.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be getting that red line version and maybe some more questions or feedback next week. So with that, we'll move on to item B, Lake Lawrence Regatta application for April 29th through 30th, 2023.
This is a yearly event. The Board of County Commissioners go through this process. The Sheriff's Office receives an applications that review. Is a regatta application from the Pacific Northwest Boat Racing Association for inboard, hydroplane, inboard, flat bottom race, and outboard hydroplane race. Those activities will be held in Lake Lawrence from April 29, April 30th, 2023. The Pacific Northwest Boat Association, Racing Association has provided documentations to review. And the Sheriff's Office feels satisfied with the review, which they provide support to this particular event. Lieutenant Ray Brady is here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Lieutenant Brady, anything you'd like to add, sir?
Good morning, Commissioners. This is as the County Manager mentioned, this is a really long-standing event. This is one of 3 regattas that our county regularly hosts, and the only change in this one is just that the name of the organization has changed this year. But same organization, and we've always had really good success with this organization.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Mensah?
No.
No questions for me? Thank you. Moving on to the Treasurer's Office, authorize the sale of tax title property via private negotiation to OAR Investments, Inc.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an item the board has continued to support. I have copies of the map. So a few years ago, the Board of County Commissioners entrusted the Treasurer's Office to systematically start disposing of tax title properties. What I'm saying, disposing of tax title properties is those tax title properties, they have become delinquent, and the county keeps those properties in custody. We don't own and fee, we just keep on custody for the benefit of the taxpayers in Thurston County. The Treasurer's Office has been very diligent in taking those opportunities and surplusing those properties to bring them back into the tax rolls, property tax rolls. This is again, a new property that is going to be sold to, I believe, the nearby property owner. It is a 0.25 acres, and the total cost for the sale price is $1,238.50. This particular property is encumbered by a very topographical challenges. It has been determined that perhaps it's not buildable. They don't have access to sewer and water yet. So, and again, and that is one of the reasons why this property became a tax title back in, I believe, 1984. That's how long has been this property under tax title. So, and again, this is, I applaud the county treasurer, Jeff Cadman, who is here in the room for being systematic in addressing those tax title properties here in the county, and he is available to answer any questions. Thank you, Jeff, and welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Grandman, is there anything you'd like to add?
County Manager Chavez covered this very, very well. We're just happy to get another one of these off our list.
Questions, Commissioner Mercer?
So this map looks a little different than, typical ones we see, just based on the black and white grid. I mean, it looks like a regular subdivision, other houses on all these other parcels, or?
There are houses on a lot of the other parcels. The two issues facing this particular parcel, what you can't see on the map is the elevation drop from the street to the back of the property. It's very, very steep. And in the late 1980s, it did fail a perk test. So there's a question about if it would be developable as a residential property.
And then, is it like the other houses in the neighborhood, are they on septics or?
Yeah.
Okay, this is nice. I don't know where this is exactly in the county.
Evergreen Shores is at the southwest end of Black Lake. And one of the attractions to owning property there, this comes back from my days at the assessor's office, one of the attractions of owning property there is you get access to this fabulous waterfront park that the association owns.
And the people illegally sneak onto to shoot ducks is what my constituents tell me.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one.
Oh, we heard that.
Okay.
And so 1,000 is the sell, what is it?
It's $1,238.50, and that includes all the fees. It's a 0.25 acre.
You don't have to cut any dead trees down or?
That's why I want to get these off the list.
Which, I think in a way that, I think you're making a good point is by going through this process, we just keep reducing the risk and liabilities the county has by holding those tax title properties under custody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Always.
Moving on to. I'll go ahead and pause. We are back from break. It is 10:42, and we will pick up with department items. Item 4A from the auditor's office, approval of the voucher list.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For your consideration next week is to approve the voucher list for the week of March 6, 2023 for a combined amount of $1,287,080 with 98 cents. And this particular items and department item will continue to have related expenditures on the tenant improvements here of the atrium. I look at this voucher list and we have maybe close to less than $100 items associated with tenant improvements, but I'd like to be, respectful of the request. So I think we're winding down in terms of the expenditures of the tenant improvements for this building. And at some point, you will just see the regular lease for the building as well as the parking lots, the two items that we have on the voucher list that's moving forward. So we'll get into that point. At that point, I believe we'll move into the consent agenda, and that has been the practice we have implemented in the past.
Item 4B, OSOS, Elections Information Security Grant, $80,000 per year.
Yeah, this
Through 2025 for a total of $240,000.
Yeah, this item, I've been having a conversation with the auditor's office. The auditor's office, I believe, either is applying or receive $80,000 in addition to what the grant they have already been receiving. This item may or may not be in your agenda because of having conversations whether what is the legislative action that you need to take, whether it's an amendment to the contract with the current grant, or perhaps just moving to authorize the auditor to accept the grant, which that not necessarily requires a legislative action. So more to come on this. If you see this item back on next week's agenda, I will have a much more explanation as to why this is here. But if you don't see it, it's because we have resolved it in a different way. Thank you.
One way or the other, it's good news though.
Is it good news? No, it's an additional $80,000, yeah, for security at the ballot processing center.
I'm sorry, what is OSOS? Is this federal money or state money?
It's a state money. It comes from the state, the Secretary of State.
Oh, Secretary of State, Office of the Secretary of State. Got it, thank you.
Okay, moving on to Central Services, item 5A, contract award for fairgrounds infrastructure improvements.
Back in March 13, 2023, we received 10 total bids to do fairgrounds infrastructure improvements. As you may recall, this is just to demolish the building, just to get it ready, the site, bring utilities to the site, and have somewhat of it ready to do the signature project at some point. We don't have any money to do the signature project. We'll continue to find ways as to how we can fund it. So this is the phase one of that particular project. And again, we receive 10 bids, and the selected bids has been ordered to Mike McLeod Construction, and the amount is for $142,788. And Jason Ash is here to answer any questions.
Jason, anything you'd like to add?
No, I believe County Manager Chavez covered it all.
I have a question. How much is the total project, right, of the building that they want to add? What's the cost of that?
The engineer's estimate for the building, I believe, was 4.7 million.
Yeah, it's significant because, as you may remember, the signature project is to have this somewhat of an event center, enclosed event center that can be marketed to rent it year round. And yeah, at this point, not even close to finding money to do that.
Where did the 500,000 estimate come from? Wasn't there like a lower estimate? way lower. I don't know if it was 500,000, but it wasn't anywhere near 4.7 million.
500,000 was to do this demolition of this building and do a little bit of a engineering study to determine how much it will cost the actual project.
Wow.
I know one of the options at one point was to do demolition, design, and like some wiring, like some electrical upgrade that would set the stage for the.
Yeah, and I believe this has the bringing the utilities to decide water and power. That
Yes,
is-
it,
Go ahead.
yes, it does. This includes, we bid it with an additive alternate because the engineer's estimate was quite a bit higher than this. So this includes demolition of 6 structures, a rock pad, and extending the utilities to the site.
Wow.
Seriously, any questions? We'll be more than happy to.
This project doesn't qualify for progressive design build.
That's the next item on your agenda, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Item 5B, request for qualifications for progressive design build services for the Thurston County infrastructure upgrades.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. This item may or may not be on your agenda next week. Let me tell you why. So as you are well aware, we have an appointment this Thursday, I believe it's 3 p.m, for us to present to the state board who authorizes the progressive design build. The progressive design build is an alternative project delivery method that authorizes, depending on a case-by-case basis, to local jurisdictions as well as private companies to go through the process of making sure we save money, and control the scope of work. Under the traditional method, and the board, I believe, is familiar with the design, bid, build, meaning we design the project, we bid it, and then we go out to construction. In this particular case, we need to secure the services of a contractor to do everything in tandem. Since we have many different buildings where we call different phases of at the courthouse campus, and we have a limitation on the budget of $50 million, is just prime for us to exercise this project delivery method. And this particular item is really to request the board to authorize the request for qualifications to secure a contractor that allow us to do that. So we will, the result of this, we will issue a contract that does everything, meaning a contractor can probably start designing pieces of building 1, as in getting the permits at that level, start the improvements on building 1. In parallel to that, they can start the design of building 2, and so on and so forth. And we have all the buildings outlined in the campus. And that is along the lines that we provided the information to you in the planning session a few months ago. So I believe we are very confident the state board will authorize the county to go with this progressive design build. And if that is the case, this is the step they would like the board for you to consider. If we are denied this Thursday, the progressive design build, then this item will not be part of your agenda next week. And at that point, we'll have to adjust, meaning the project will not stop. The project will need to continue on with the traditional method, and there is a risk of the increasing construction costs, as you see on the escalation we have seen in terms of inflation. What it will do is probably, it's not like we have additional money beyond the 50 million. What will put us in the position without the progressive design bill, they will have to do less with the $50 million. And that is really the risk, and I think the opportunities that we have with this progressive design build. And Tom Strimker has been working with our consultants. I think we have a pretty good application, we have a good presentation, and we have already provided answers to the public testimony they have already sent to them. So we're here. I don't know if you'd like to elaborate anything else, Tom?
No, covered it well. Just here to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner
I
Amundson?
think I got it.
Okay, we'll see what, it's this afternoon,
No, it's Thursday afternoon.
Thursday afternoon, okay. So we'll see Thursday afternoon what the results are.
They'll immediately respond with a,
They made a determination at that meeting, so we'll know, and the formal letter will come up in the next 5 days, but we'll know on Thursday.
More to come on Thursday. We'll either be going on a straight path or we'll have to.
Yep, adjust. But again, just because the decision of the state board on Thursday does not stop the project, in a way.
Community Planning and Economic Development, item 6A, set a public hearing for Development Code docket item A-6, Shoreline Master Program update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up to the conversation the board had related to the SMP. And this is a long standing item that has been in the works. This is docket item the A6. It has been always in the last decade, if not more, part of the docketing process for the board. I applaud the board to take an affirmative actions to keep moving forward with the process. As you may recall, last year, you asked the Planning Commission to go ahead and held a public hearing, which the Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 20, 2021. And then to follow up the conversation, the Planning Commission submitted a recommendation to the board on a split vote, 5-3, recommended approval of the amendments. You have follow-up conversations last year, this year, and where the board provided a recommendation to take the Planning Commission recommendations, adding the required items from the Department of Ecology, adding the desired items from the Department of Ecology, and that document will go to public review for you to provide public testimony. Also, as part of the public review process, you add to include the minority report of the Planning Commission, and that also will be available for public review leading to this public hearing. So these items really is follow up the direction for you to consider setting the public hearing for May 16, 2023 at 5 in the afternoon. That you will be receiving public testimony on the document that I just described. Andrew DeFaves, the senior planner, is here, who has been managing this item. If you have any questions, he is here.
So my question is, I'm not exactly sure how we put out what we put out for public comment. And I want to minimize public confusion. And what I'm concerned about is Planning Commission draft, minority report, now board ecology input, board directs to incorporate the ecology input, which actually addresses not all, but some of the minority report concerns. Is there a way to make that known to the public that the draft that they're gonna be commenting on has been modified from the Planning Commission recommendation that was commented on by the minority report with the ecology recommendations? Just so at some level, if people are paying attention, they would understand that, I guess what I'm worried about is there's a lot of detail in the minority report, and I don't want people to spin their wheels, commenting in great detail on those details if to the extent they've been addressed by the ecology revised draft.
For the record, Andrew DeFaves, Senior Planner with Community Planning. So what we will do is put out a draft document that it'll be a clean copy of the Planning Commission, and then you'll see edits that represent the items from ecology that the county manager indicated. And we typically start out with a sort of an explainer sheet at the top of these documents that sort of set the context for what's in it. So there will be a short couple paragraphs at the very top of it that say you were reading Planning Commission recommendation with further input as directed by the board to consider for public comment, and in addition, there's a minority report that can be referenced here.
That was drafted before.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll have a short summary at the top of that document that sort of tells that story. And it's also possible that throughout the document, we'll make little notes that just say, this is an option consideration from the Planning Commission Minority Report. The board would like comment in this area. So we have ways to guide the public to those specific points to make sure that you're getting that feedback on those items you've asked for.
My fingers.
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock and there's gonna be significant public testimony, so we'll plan a way to accommodate the space and the timing.
At most, yeah. So, I think for me, the chart is very helpful. The big chart that has it all. I'm wondering if there's a possibility to add the planning minority besides the planning commission recommendation. The planning commission minority recommendations and then the ecology, just adding one more column onto that graph. For me, the graph was extremely helpful. I also sat down, thank you for the recommendation to sit down with staff as well as the planning commission chair. It was very helpful to just kind of go through all the different aspects and have staff kind of break down the information for me. So I did that as well. And it helped me understand kind of the big points that we're gonna be really discussing. But maybe for, in just some of the emails I've gotten, I've already seen people spinning their wheels on either the minority report or the planning commission recommendation and I think a lot of the questions are addressed with the ecology required recommendations that come through. So maybe just having kind of that, I don't know how, right, to make it kind of.
We'll take a look at how we can communicate what the content of that minority report is, either in the draft itself to call people's attention to it or to somehow modify that matrix. Do the best we can to inform and also not confuse, because as you've indicated, it's pretty complex, but we will absolutely see what we can do.
You hear what we're trying to get at, and we leave it to you to think of the best way to do it, because you've got
That's a good point.
types of plans, and so, but.
Minimize confusion, yeah.
Yeah, just, maximize that balance between maximizing the elements that we get comment on, that I want it to all be pertinent. I don't want people spending a lot of time commenting on things that ecology has said you can't do it or something, and people put a lot of time and effort into some of these public comments. I'm really impressed, and I want them to be focused on the decision points we actually have to make, because that'll be the most helpful to us.
Perfect. So May 16th is when we'll be having that public hearing. And then I'm imagining a discussion will be following soon after that.
Yeah, there will not be a way for you to take an action on that, and the public testimony will, as Commissioner Messer stated, depending on public testimony, there's other decision points the board needs to take where you have the options. So it's more to come, but at least this is a good first step before you consider making any decisions to hear from the public. And that will probably certainly give you more informed decision process.
Yeah, and then I will make, again, my recommendation of having a 2-hour briefing following that public hearing. And the sooner we can have it, the better, because at least the public comment will be fresh on all of our minds. And we can really go into it. If we wait a couple of weeks, then we're all looking at notes, trying to kind of refresh ourselves, so.
You can just go ahead and add it to the calendar. We'll work with Jamie.
I'll work with Jamie. Okay, great.
At least before we take the recess.
Yeah, yes. No, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Long session in to follow up on public comment, and then go from there.
Thank you. Okay, District Court, 7A, Professional Service Contract Amendment, Substance Monitoring Program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For your consideration is to amend a contract that we have with Friendship Federation Services. And as you may recall, the board authorized $500,000 from ARPA funds to have provide the what are called the transmural blood alcohol monitoring services. That program has been extremely successful. They have served 170 individuals. And what total cost about $230,000. The program still has capacity on that the ARPA funds. However, there is a need to provide services to substance use monitoring. And I believe there is a requirement for lab services. In this particular outfit, the Friendship Diversion Services provide the same services related to what district court needs in terms of lab. Is that contract but different scope of work. And the Mental Health and Veterans Court has currently budget on the treatment sales tax. They can be utilized to provide the services of testing, lab testing under the DUI drug court. So it's one is the monitoring devices and this is the lab testing. They can be under a single contract with two different scopes of work. And this is the amendment to this contract for your consideration. And Frankie Peters is here to correct everything what I just said.
Frankie,
Thank you, County Manager. And hello, Commissioners. It was well summarized. Thank you, County Manager. And I think the main piece here, as far as the summary is those last handful of bullet points that you have on your summary report. Those are really the opportunities that we're looking at as far as getting these services under one roof. So currently we have these provided through a couple different agencies. This will end up centralizing that into what we currently have with Friendship to make our services more efficient for the county, for the court, and for Mental Health and Veterans Court. Of course, with the caveat of ensuring that the already allocated TST funds that are coming in to support Mental Health and Veterans Court participants will be uniquely and independently identified for that funding source as we currently have with the ARPA funding through our original contract for the substance monitoring program.
This is TST.
Yeah, TST for the amendment.
Friendship's already doing the Scram stuff, and now they're gonna add in this other piece that you've been using somebody else for?
Correct. So Friendship right now we're already utilizing their services for Scram and urinalysis testing. So this would be same service. There would be no change to the actual service being provided by Friendship. What we have right now for Mental Health and Veterans Court is the actual sample collection is taken by DUI Drug Court. And then those samples are sent over to a lab, toxicology lab, where we end up 87% of our current TST budget goes to them for that testing function. So right now it's kind of split up into one avenue or two avenues. We're going to consolidate all that into one to build that efficiency with what we have currently set up with Friendship.
There's no, so this is not about allocating more money for anything, it's
redirecting the already money and as Frankie stated, is really is more efficient to have those two services under a single contract.
Frankie, and can you explain, because we discussed this at our check-in previously, and I'm wondering, one of the reasons you explained was because of the timing issue that District Court really started looking into this because of the times where drug court was, had that availability and the issues that people had in getting to that specific timeline at, especially. So I was hoping you could kind of discuss that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the current resources that are over there for DUI drug court, and their team has been doing absolutely amazing for what they have. But as far as with our participants, we have a lot of participants that have transportation issues, transportation needs, childcare needs, jobs that we've just gotten them into that they can't miss. And with the current testing requirements, the participants end up calling in and they only have an ability to report generally between 6:30 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. So that's presented a lot of barriers, and we've had to reschedule or spend a lot of time, a lot of resources in finding other times for them or other dates for them to get in within that small time block. What we have set up currently that we've been utilizing with Friendship is that opportunity opens up throughout the day. So if we do have any issues with childcare, with any personal issues presented by a participant or other treatment obligations, we can have them come into Friendship. They work with them and they can come in at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon to have the urinalysis taken. So it really broadens the ability for us to work with participants and getting them in for that testing to ensure that we have compliance and there isn't any issues of non-compliance by somebody's inability to come in due to personal restrictions or barriers.
Thank you. I thought that was very important when you were telling me just the availability of time that would open up to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that. We've actually had a recent participant who we were able to help them get a new position, a new job. And with that issue was them being able to take time off. They can't take time off once they have that new position. So we had a lot of issues and having to reschedule, and where somebody may be required by the court to get 2 or 3 UA tests per week. These people would be in a situation where it'd be 0 or 1. So we start having issues with compliance where we don't want to create those barriers to what they're achieving in their own personal life.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Public Health and Social Services, item 8A, amendment of 2022 through 2023 interlocal agreement with Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization for Treatment Sales Tax Funds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up to the budget decisions the board made for 2023, which increased the contributions to the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization. This amendment carries the contract that we have is from January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2023. So the allocation for 2023 for treatment sales tax is $3,710,286. And again, this is the administrative step to follow up with the board's decisions of the 2023 budget. And Carrie's here to add additional context to this item.
Thank you. Carrie, anything you'd like to add?
Good summary. So again, we wrote a 2-year contract for 2022, 2023, and now with, new funds being added, need to amend for 2023. And we did talk about some aspects of this at agenda setting a week or 2 ago.
Thank you.
We think we did talk about this. So, I'm good.
Okay. I'm good with item 8A. 8B, treatment sales tax community grant contract extensions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, as you know, we have contract with community providers. And those current contracts is current to be lapsing in June 2023 this year. And there is an attempt by the TST to align those contracts to a calendar year. So there's a couple of actions in here for the board's consideration to extend all those contracts to December 31st, 2023. And also adding money to those contracts because we add the performance of those by 6 months. So there is 2 steps in here. One is they're going to extend the contracts to December 31st, 2023, and add the additional money for the last 6 months of the year. So with the overall context, the new tool for will be to extend the YMCA contracts, I believe. Okay, it's right here. The Community Action Council of Mason in Lewis County will be increased by 50,000 for a total contract of 250,000. Family Support Center will be increased by 54,000 to a total of 233,810. YMCA of Olympia will be increased by 23,000 for a total contract 115,450. And again, that will take us to additional 6 months of 2023. There is enough funding on the TST program, is within the budget authority you have approved. And this more aligns to the calendar year of the different contracts that we have. Carrie?
Thanks. Yes. So all I would add to that is our TST's investment in community grants has really grown over the past few years. So a couple of years ago, we had at any given time 3 grants, about $250,000 to $300,000 in the community. We now actually have 10 contracts totaling over $1 million. And one of the challenges that this action is asking to address is that they're actually on 2 separate timelines. So we do have a set of grants that expire on December 31st, but then we have these grants that started earlier and are scheduled to end earlier. The goal here is to have everybody end at the same time, makes things administratively easier for staff and a little bit more of a rational process when we go to issue a new RFP for the next round. Sort of everyone could be applying at the same time. So it's just these couple contracts to extend to align with other contracts. And as the county manager said, this can be accomplished within existing budget authority.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Menzer? Thank you for that explanation, Carrie, because I was like, okay, why are we doing, I was like, I remember some of these, but I remember that there was a lot more, and so
Right, so yes, there is another batch that already have contracts that are valid through this year, so that, we don't need to do anything on those right now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So then that will conclude our items for this agenda. And so moving on to proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions.
Good morning. For proclamations, outside of what was already reviewed, Commissioner Mejia was sent a request by a constituent requesting a proclamation on April 30th for National Therapy Animal Day. Their suggested draft of the request has been included for your review. We do currently have a proclamation being issued every Tuesday in April for the BoCC meetings and one being issued on April 11th for the Board of Health meeting. Just give you that information, take into consideration for it. For boards and commissions, the standing applications for the Housing Authority and Black Lake Special District have been included. I reached out to the Special District last week to give them your update from the agenda setting meeting to just do reasonable outreach and report back, and I'm currently just waiting to hear back from them. The Housing Authority is still actively trying to get a couple of people to apply. I did let the staff contact know that if no new applications were received within the next couple of weeks, that I anticipate the board will make an appointment decision based on what you've already received. They are appreciative of the extra time and are recommending appointment of Sherry Chilcutt if no new applications are received. I did receive a student appointment request for the Agricultural Advisory Committee and an appointment request for the Boundary Review Board. I've asked the staff contact for the Ag Committee to have them review it and provide an appointment recommendation, and they're planning to discuss it during their April meeting. And the Boundary Review Board is recommending appointment of the applicant as requested. Outside of any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Menzer. Do you want to start with proclamations and then move on to advisory?
I don't have any, if you're asking me about the animal therapy, I mean, I did get the same request. My personal response was gonna be our schedule is full and we would consider this for next year and when, at the time that the board takes up next
Okay.
year's schedule. But if I'm outvoted, that's fine. I just thought
I
we
brought
should-
it to the board for discussion. That was, I am not,
the book, we went through the proclamations for the year and set it all out, so I
Yeah.
kind of feel like we should not, unless it's a real major unanticipated thing, we shouldn't be just sticking them in every time that we get asked. We should take them up together at the beginning of the year. But like I say, I don't have any objection, but it's,
and then this one, what I saw that it was basically most on like Tumwater and Tumwater.
it was sent to a whole bunch of jurisdictions, I believe.
Okay,
So it wasn't like a special Thurston County related thing. They're just seeing
Okay.
if they can get different jurisdictions
to do it. Perfect. I'm okay with Commissioner Mentzer's response. Do you
Okay.
mind that being the response
Yeah,
from?
that's fine.
I'm more than happy to provide that follow-up too, so it isn't coming from directly from one board member.
Yeah, let's have the clerk of the board.
Okay.
And we'll file this request and we'll bring it back when you.
Put it on our list for next year.
No problem.
Next year.
Okay.
With two additional county commissioners.
Thank you. And then moving on to advisory boards and commissions. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I have, I'm working on setting up since I went through the process of interviewing all the applicants for Housing Authority last fall, I'm gonna do the same for Ms. Chilcutt. So I would like to defer on this until I have a chance to speak with her. But hopefully that can happen in the next week or so, so maybe I'll be ready next week.
Okay.
And the other two are new, and I'd probably want to review their applications and check with Commissioner Edwards.
Yeah. So I would also like to, because that was one of the things I did for the Housing Authority was I talked with all of the reappointment seekers as well as the ones who were seeking new appointments. And so I think Ms. Chilcutt deserves the same courtesy from me as well. So I'll be reaching out to her and seeing if I can have a conversation with her. And then for the Ag Advisory, you said the Ag Advisory was going to review.
At their next meeting, I believe it's the third Thursday of the month, if I'm recalling correctly. But it has been added to their agenda to take a look at.
And I believe this has been a direct result of the news release that we sent.
Yes.
Asking for update, which, that's good, I think.
I reviewed his application and was very excited. Kind of what we were seeking for that student appointment. And then Boundary Review Board, they recommended it. We're gonna be discussing that one next week, once Commissioner Edwards is back. And then the Black Lake Special District, that,
I provided them the update just to do, reasonable outreach and report back. And, probably in like the next couple weeks, just to kind of give an idea of what they've done. And I'm just waiting to hear back from them. I didn't get a response to that email yet at all, so.
okay. Sounds good.
Did you say the Boundary Review Board recommended, Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
And is that there was one where it was the Board of County Commissioners appointment, right? Is that what
Yes,
this is
yeah.
talking about? Okay. And are they hampered in their ability to do business because of?
Not as far as I understand it to be, no.
No time
Mm-mm.
rush, okay.
Well, we're talking, I guess, about advisory boards and commissions, even though this isn't one. I did speak with Auditor Mary Hall yesterday, and she's working on some policies and procedures for salary commission, and she's been requesting the member makeup as well as attendance for salary commission. And she says she hadn't received it, so just want to make sure that that information does get sent to her. Since that's one of the committees we've been
I have a meeting scheduled with the auditor tomorrow as well as Jane Futterman on this subject. So that might be for me to understand what she's looking for.
So it's the member makeup. And this is kind of like separate. She's, that's kind of just in our conversations, she's working on those procedures. And so she says she's been kind of requesting this information, hasn't received it.
As you may know, I believe 2 or 3 members, their term expired at the end of March.
Yeah.
And the others needs to go through the lottery again for a formal appointment. So that is going to create a big issue whether the salary commission could meet this year. And in fact, I believe at your request, Madam Chair, I do have an item next agenda setting related to this topic. So based on the conversation that I will have with the county auditor, I will provide additional information next Tuesday morning.
Moving on to legislative update.
PIO check-in.
Oh, PIO check-in, sorry. Skip you, Meg.
It's okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter. I don't have anything significant to update you on.
Okay.
When is the Insider new version?
So the Insider is slated to be released either the first or second week of April, and the first Friday 5 is expected to go out the first week of April as well.
I had a conversation with the county coroner, Gary Warnock. He requested to have a little piece of when he provides the numbers related to his business. So have Anna reach out to him and see if we can have a little square
Will do.
of his information. Thank you.
Big square. She can fit it in. That sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No further questions.
No, I'm good on PIO check-in.
Okay, moving on to legislative update then.
This is the reduced list of all the bills that you are tracking. I'm not gonna go through each one of them. Some are dead, some still a little bit alive. One that I'd like to highlight in page number 4. And that is House Bill 1670. There is a Senate bill, companion Senate bill that I need to add on that one. I'll give you that. So those 2 bills are related to raising the limit factor property taxes. I reported incorrectly last week because they didn't pass the Chamber of Origin, those bills. And so I assume they were dead, but it was determined those are necessary to implement the budget. So those are still alive. The conversation will continue, and I will keep you appraised as to how this moving forward when the legislature discuss the budget. And at that point, those 2 bills will be becoming part of the conversation. Again, this eliminates the 1% cap, but also gives you up to 3% depending on inflation and other factors. And it's not going to be mandatory. There is going to be the bill as it is right now, both bills. It will be an option for the local legislative authorities to implement that property tax increases as just to keep up with inflation. And any questions on that? And the other bill that I'd like to highlight that may be pertinent as Senate Bill 5067 and the companion bill House Bill 1645. It provides a little more flexibility as to when in this case, the Board of County Commissioners will meet. This particular item authorizes to have regular board meetings once a month outside of the county seat and in a jurisdiction larger than the county seat population. In this case, it will really allow it to have meetings within the city of Lacey once a month, and also will allow it to have in smaller areas once a quarter. So it provides flexibility. Both bills has passed the House, and I believe it's headed to the governor's for signature.
Why Lacey? Just because it's the biggest?
Yeah, right now it's the biggest jurisdiction.
And if that's, you can go once a month to the biggest jurisdiction or once a quarter anywhere?
When smaller, yeah. And that's all I have, unless you have any particular questions on the legislative update.
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so nothing under briefing, public hearing decisions pending. Request for additional improvements, atrium.
Yes, and this is an item that I have when we move into the atrium, we work with the different departments, offices and departments to determine what the furniture, cubicles and everything, and we'll have provided that based on their feedback. And as you know, we came just under the budget the board allocated. But as some offices have determined they need to do additional changes to the furniture and the other improvements. And at this point, we really don't have any money, any budget to accommodate their requests. The proposal that I have is that with your concurrence, we will draft an MOU that the chair will sign with those elected offices. And that MOU will outline if they have budget authority this year, they can go ahead and do that, and they will cover the cost. And also this MOU will outline, those offices will not come back to the board to us a budget amendment to cover those costs. So it really gives the latitude to those offices who would like to do additional improvements, which those vary. And it will be, if they have budget authority this year, they can go ahead and do that as long as we have an MOU signed. I have a draft MOU for consideration, but that's the approach that I'd like to bring to the board. Because the staff from facilities is receiving a lot of pressure and a lot of requests. And unfortunately, we don't have the money or the budget to accommodate those requests at this point.
Questions, comments?
So with your concurrence, if we're gonna be approaching those offices with this draft MOU and. Nope, and that's what I want to hear this.
No.
So if the answer is no, then it's fine. I was just trying to find.
If you wanna bring it up next week and maybe Commissioner Edwards is a different, but.
Just trying to move forward because the staff from facility is getting a lot of pressure, a lot of requests, and
You can't grant those requests because they don't have budget authority.
Yep, we don't have budget. And but again, the staff is the one who gets those requests.
So I don't understand your no to the MOU or no to the request being granted.
Both.
So you just keep the status quo, which is they keep asking, they keep being told no, and that's how it works. Because you don't want to give them budget authority to pay from their own budget.
I feel like we're opening up a can of worms.
That's fair. That's what I'm trying to.
I felt
do.
like, I think I was, when we first had that initial meeting, it was, this building is not about wants. We all have different wants, and it's about just the needs, just to really get through. And it's evolved into something else. It's evolved into, well, I want this and I want that instead of the necessities. And pretty soon we're gonna be in the same thing with the offices at the main campus, when they're gonna say, well, give us budget authority as well for our furniture, and we're just gonna get into this huge can of worms. And I would rather just, for me, that's my feelings personally. I feel like I would rather just say no, just outright.
Okay.
We'll have a conversation at next Tuesday meeting is packed, so maybe I'll bring this back again when the full board is present.
So maybe I'll.
Is that or you concurrent with Commissioner Mejia in this conversation is done?
Well, I mean, I agree with the sentiment. It's really about how to handle, I think we have the same goal. The question is how to handle it. Like, what I'm attracted to in your proposal is no budget amendments, trying to squeeze it in there and getting the request to sort of stop. So I see that as maybe a good approach. I understand Commissioner Mejia is looking at it differently but I think it's just two predictions about how to best handle the common goal. So I'd like to hear Commissioner Edwards' perspective on that. Myself, in 2 weeks though, I will not be at the meeting on Tuesday.
And I will not be here either.
I'm out of office on the first
So
week.
me too, that spring break.
If it's not
So
next week, it'll be
maybe,
3
maybe
weeks,
later on.
if you're trying to get the whole board.
But if you were to ask me, some of the consequences of this approach would have been that the reversion for those officers will be less.
Sure.
And that is the consequences of that. So,
Yeah, no, I understand that.
thank you. That's all I have. I'll bring this item later on.
We do have an executive session that's gonna take 30 minutes, so we'll go ahead unless there's a pending commissioner
Hey,
item.
Travis, if you're listening, can you join? I know we need attorneys for this executive session.
One question, one commissioner item before we go out into executive session. County manager, I got this letter from DSHS. And are we gonna address that at some point? It doesn't have to be today, but I'm just wondering.
We will. I don't want to give you my first reaction at this point. I need to reread it again. Just to let you know that we did share that letter with the legislative delegation because they were interested, so that has been shared. But I think we need to have further conversation. I also shared this with Elizabeth just to talk it through, so give me some time. I don't think it's an urgent matter.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I just, since you asked me, don't push me, but since you asked me, extremely disappointed on their response.
Kind of read like a DNR letter where they're like, this is all your fault and, you know, and we're doing everything we have to do, but.
And you know, they, not that you got me into this conversation. It is, they're washing their hands off. And really, they said it doesn't apply because they don't operate those facilities. But those individuals involved within this process is their responsibility. And just because a contractor is doing their work for them, that doesn't negate the responsibility to follow through. Then I'll stop there before I get a little more animated on this letter, Commissioner.
Okay,
More to come.
more to come on that. Yeah, I had that same reaction when I read it, and I was like, oh.
Like, I feel like I read this letter before from a state agency.
Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and go to executive session for RCW 42.30.110 subsection I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party. Thurston County versus DNR, Summit Lake. This session will take approximately 30 minutes and commissioner's action may follow.
Let me just announce.
too, but.
Okay. So,
All right.
we're back from executive session. We're in executive session for RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or member acting in official capacity is or is likely to become a party. Thurston County versus DNR Summit Lake. No commissioner's action follows that, and with that, we are adjourned.